Jake Martinez stared at the massive alien ship through the viewport of the research vessel New Horizon. The ship looked like a living creature made of crystal and metal, its surface glowing with soft blue light. Jake had studied alien biology for 10 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Captain Lisa Brooks stood beside him, her face tense. "They're asking for a meeting," she said. "First contact protocols are in effect." Jake nodded and checked his equipment. As the ship's xenobiologist, he would be part of the first human team to meet with the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens had appeared at the edge of human space 3 days ago, sending peaceful signals but refusing to talk to anyone except in person. The docking process took 2 hours. Jake watched as the alien ship extended what looked like a living tube toward their vessel. When the airlock opened, Jake felt his heart racing. This was history in the making. The first alien to step through was enormous. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like living crystal. Her body was humanoid, but she had 6 arms, each ending in delicate hands. Her face was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with large eyes that shifted color from blue to purple. She wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. Behind her came 5 other aliens, all smaller but equally impressive. They moved with grace that reminded Jake of dancers. "I am Queen Viroleth of the Zephyrian Empire," the tall alien said. Her voice was melodic like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I come seeking help from the humans." Captain Brooks stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I am Captain Brooks of the human research vessel New Horizon. We welcome you in peace." The Queen's skin flickered with different colors. Jake realized this might be how her species showed emotion. "Captain Brooks, I do not come for trade or alliance talks. I come because my son is dying and we believe humans might be able to save him." Jake felt surprised. He had expected the first contact to be about politics or technology exchange. Dr. Peter Cole, the ship's psychologist, moved closer. "Your Majesty, can you tell us more about your son's condition?" Queen Viroleth's skin turned darker, showing what Jake guessed was sadness. "My son, Prince Kale, has been in a state of mental shutdown for 4 months. He does not speak, does not eat unless forced, and does not respond to anyone. Our best healers and our most advanced technology cannot reach him. What caused this condition?" Captain Brooks asked. "He witnessed the destruction of one of our colony worlds by the Devourers. They are a machine race that consumes all organic life. Prince Kale was on a diplomatic mission when they attacked. He watched millions of our people die before we could evacuate him." Jake felt a chill. He had heard rumors of machine races in the Outer Rim, but this was the first confirmation. "Your Majesty, why do you think humans can help when your own people cannot?" The Queen looked directly at Jake. "We have studied human psychology from the signals we intercepted from your networks. Humans have a unique ability to heal emotional trauma. Your species has survived countless wars and disasters, yet you continue to help each other recover. We believe this gift might work across species barriers." Dr. Cole frowned. "Your Majesty, we appreciate your faith in us, but treating alien psychology would be completely new territory. We don't understand how Zephyrian minds work." "We are willing to teach you," the Queen said. "But there is more. To show how desperate we are, I make this offer. Whoever can heal my son and bring him back to us will be offered a marriage alliance with me. This would make that person the second ruler of the Zephyrian Empire and create an eternal bond between our species." Jake felt his mouth drop open. Marriage to an alien queen was not something he had ever considered. The other humans looked equally shocked. Captain Brooks recovered first. "Your Majesty, this is a very generous offer, but we need time to consider it. The risks are enormous." "I understand," Queen Viroleth said. "But please know that Prince Kale grows weaker each day. Without help, he will soon die of grief. In our culture, when one cannot connect with others, the body follows the mind into darkness." Jake found himself speaking before he could stop himself. "Your Majesty, I volunteer to try." Everyone turned to look at him. Captain Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Jake, you're a xenobiologist, not a psychologist." "But I understand alien biology and behavior," Jake said. and I've dealt with trauma in my own life. Maybe that combination is what's needed. Dr. Cole shook his head. Jake, you don't understand what you're offering. You could be stuck on an alien world for months, maybe years. And if you fail, if I fail, a child dies, Jake said. And we lose the chance to make the first real alliance between humans and aliens. Queen Violet stepped toward Jake. Her skin brightened with what looked like hope. You would do this? Human Jake Martinez? You would leave your people to try to save my son? Jake felt scared but determined. Yes, your majesty. I'll try. The queen's skin now glowed with beautiful patterns of gold and blue. Then you will come to our world. I will teach you about our ways, and you will try to reach Prince Kale. If you succeed, you will be honored beyond measure. If you fail... She paused. If you fail, you will still have our eternal gratitude for trying. Captain Brooks looked worried. Your Majesty, we need to send reports back to Earth. This decision affects all of humanity. I understand, Captain Brooks. But time is short. Can your Jake Martinez come with us now? We can arrange for communication with your people. Jake looked around at his colleagues. Dr. Cole looked worried but nodded slowly. Captain Brooks seemed torn between duty and opportunity. The other crew members watched in silence. I'll need to pack some things, Jake said. And I want to send a message. To my family. Of course, Queen Violet said. But please hurry. Every day we delay, Prince Kale fades further away from us. As Jake went to gather his belongings, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. He was about to leave everything he knew to try to heal an alien child he had never met. The reward was unimaginable, but so was the risk. But as he packed his research equipment and personal items, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. Maybe this was why he had studied alien life forms. Maybe this was his chance to prove that humans could be more than just another species in space. 2 hours later, Jake stood at the airlock with a small bag of belongings. Queen Violet waited. For him, her skin showing patterns that seemed to indicate gratitude and hope. The journey to the Zephyrian homeworld took 3 days. Jake spent most of the time in his guest quarters aboard the alien ship, studying the materials Queen Violet had given him about her people. The ship itself was amazing, with walls that seemed to breathe and floors that felt warm under his feet. Everything was alive in some way. Queen Violet visited him each day to teach him about Zephyrian culture. She explained that her people experienced emotions, through color changes in their skin and through mental connections they called harmonics. When Zephyrians were happy, their skin glowed with bright colors. When they were sad, it turned dark. When they were angry, it flashed red. Prince Kale has not shown any colors for months, she told Jake on the second day. His skin remains gray, like stone. This is not natural for our kind. Jake learned that Zephyrians lived much longer than humans, sometimes for thousands of years. Prince Kale was only 50 years old, which made him a teenager by their standards. He had been chosen to go on the diplomatic mission because he was curious about other species and good at making friends. He wanted to explore the galaxy, Queen Violet said, her skin showing soft blue patterns that Jake now understood meant love mixed with sadness. He believed all life forms could learn from each other. The attack on the colony world destroyed that innocence. When they arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld, Jake gasped at what he saw. The planet was covered with floating cities made of living crystal. The cities glowed with soft light and moved slowly through the air above vast forests that sparkled with bioluminescent plants. Rivers of liquid light flowed between the trees, and creatures that looked like flying jewels moved through the air. The royal palace was the largest floating structure, shaped like a massive flower with petals that opened and closed with the rhythm of breathing. As their ship approached, Jake felt small and overwhelmed. This was a civilization millions of years older than humanity, with technology that seemed like magic. Queen Violet led him through corridors that curved and twisted like the inside of a seashell. The walls were covered with living art that moved and changed colors as they walked past. Other Zephyrians bowed as the queen passed, their skin showing respect patterns of deep purple and gold. My people are grateful you have come, she said. Many believed Prince Kale was lost forever. They reached a garden chamber in the center of the palace. Jake stepped through an archway and found himself in a space that was both indoors and outdoors. The ceiling was open to the sky, but the walls were made of living plants that grew in beautiful patterns. In the center of the garden sat a fountain that made musical sounds as water flowed over crystal formations. Prince Kale sat on a bench beside the fountain. Jake felt his heart sink when he saw the young alien. The prince was smaller than his mother, about Jake's height, with the same basic body structure but more delicate features. His skin was completely gray, like ash, and he stared at nothing with empty eyes. He didn't move when they approached, didn't even seem to notice they were there. "Kale, my son," Queen Violet said softly, "I have brought the human I told you about. Jake Martinez has come to help you." The prince showed no reaction. He sat perfectly still, his hands resting on his knees, breathing slowly. Jake could see that he was alive, but it was like looking at a statue. "How long can he stay like this?" Jake asked. "Not much longer," the queen replied. "Our bodies need emotional connection to survive. Without it, we begin to fade. Prince Kale has been surviving on the love we send him, but he cannot receive it properly. Soon, even that will not be enough." Jake moved closer to the prince and sat down on the bench beside him. "Hello, Kale. I'm Jake. I'm here to help if I can." No response. Jake had worked with traumatized animals before, but this was different. This was a person, an intelligent being who had chosen to retreat from the world. "Tell me about the attack," Jake said to Queen Violet. What exactly did he see? The queen's skin turned dark with painful memories. The devourers came without warning. They are machines that consume organic matter to fuel themselves. They attacked the colony world where Prince Kale was visiting. He was in the capital city when they began destroying everything. Jake listened as she described the horror. The devourers had swept across the planet like a plague, eating forests, animals, and people. The Zephyrians had fought back, but their weapons were designed for defense, not for fighting an enemy that consumed everything it touched. "Prince Kale was trapped in the city for 2 days before we could rescue him," Queen Violet continued. "He watched millions of people die. He saw children being consumed, families destroyed. When we finally reached him, he was already like this." Jake studied the prince's face. He had seen this kind of trauma before in humans who had survived disasters. The mind shut down to protect itself from unbearable pain, but sometimes it couldn't find its way back. "In human psychology, we call this dissociation," Jake said. "The mind disconnects from reality to avoid processing terrible experiences. But your son's condition seems more severe than anything I've seen in humans." "That is because of our harmonic connections," Queen Violet explained. "When Zephyrians experience trauma, it affects not just our individual minds but our ability to connect with others. Prince Kale has lost the ability to feel the emotional bonds that keep us healthy." Jake spent the rest of the day sitting with Prince Kale, talking to him even though he didn't respond. He told him about Earth, about human cities and oceans and mountains. He described the research ship and the journey to the Zephyrian world. He talked about anything he could think of, hoping to find some spark of interest in the prince's empty eyes. Nothing worked. Prince Kale remained motionless, staring at nothing. That night, Jake lay in his guest quarters thinking about the challenge. Ahead, he had volunteered to help, but now he understood how impossible the task might be. The prince wasn't just sad or scared. He had completely disconnected from the world around him. Jake thought about his own experiences with loss and trauma. He had lost his parents in a transport accident when he was young. He remembered the feeling of wanting to disappear, to stop feeling anything at all. But he had been lucky. He had friends and teachers who helped him through the darkness. Prince Kale had no one who could reach him. The Zephyrian methods of healing relied on emotional connection, but that was exactly what the prince had lost. Jake realized he would need to find a completely different approach, something that combined human understanding with alien psychology. As he drifted off to sleep, Jake wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. But he also felt determined to try everything he could think of. Somewhere inside that gray, motionless body was a young person who needed help. Jake was going to find a way to reach him. Jake woke up early the next morning and went straight to the garden chamber. Prince Kale sat in exactly the same position as the day before, like he had never moved at all. Jake pulled up a chair and sat down facing the prince. "Good morning, Kale," Jake said. "I brought something I want to share with you." Jake had spent the night thinking about different approaches. He pulled out a small device that could play music from Earth. He had loaded it with songs that had helped him through difficult times in his own life. He started with a gentle piano piece that his mother used to play. The music filled the garden chamber, mixing with the sound of the crystal fountain. Jake watched Prince Kale's face carefully, looking for any sign of reaction. Nothing changed for the first few minutes. Then Jake noticed something tiny. The prince's breathing seemed to match the rhythm of the music, just slightly. It was so small that Jake almost missed it. "You can hear it, can't you?" Jake said softly. "Music is one of the few things that can reach us even when we want to hide from everything else." Over the next hour, Jake played different types of music. Classical pieces, folk songs, even some rock music. Each time he watched for any response. The prince never moved or opened his eyes, but Jake noticed that his breathing changed with different songs. Queen Verileth arrived in the afternoon and found Jake still sitting with her son. She looked tired and her skin showed the gray patterns that meant worry. "Any progress?" she asked. "Maybe," Jake said. "I think he's listening to the music even if he can't respond." "Tell me more about how emotions work for your people." The queen sat down beside them. "Emotions for Zephyrians are not just feelings, they are connections between minds. When we are happy, we share that happiness with others through our skin colors and our harmonic frequencies. When we are sad, others can feel our sadness and offer comfort." Jake nodded. "So Prince Kale isn't just traumatized. He's cut off from the emotional network that keeps your people healthy." "Exactly," Queen Verileth said. "It is like being alone in a room where everyone else can see and hear, but you are blind and deaf. The isolation is as harmful as the original trauma." Jake thought about this. What if we could create new connections? Not the same as before, but something that could help him feel less alone. The queen's skin flickered with interest. "What do you mean?" "In human therapy, we sometimes use music and art to help people express emotions they can't put into words. Maybe we could use sound to create artificial harmonic connections." Jake spent the rest of the day working with Queen Verileth to understand Zephyrian harmonic frequencies. She showed him how healthy Zephyrians created patterns of sound that matched their emotions. Happy sounds were high and musical, like birds singing. Sad sounds were low and flowing, like wind through trees. Angry sounds were sharp and fast, like breaking glass. "Prince Kale used to be very good at harmonics," Queen Verileth said. "He could create the most beautiful patterns, especially when he was curious or excited about something new." Jake got an idea. What if we played recordings of his own harmonic patterns? Maybe hearing his own voice from before the trauma could help him remember who he was. The queen's skin brightened with hope. "We have many recordings of his harmonics. From when he was younger, I will have them brought here." That evening, Jake sat with Prince Kale and played recordings of the prince's own harmonic patterns from years past. The sounds were beautiful and complex, like a combination of singing and instrumental music. Jake could hear the curiosity and joy in the patterns, even though he didn't fully understand them. For the first time, Prince Kale showed a clear reaction. When his own voice filled the garden chamber, his gray skin flickered with just a hint of color. It was gone so quickly that Jake almost missed it, but it was definitely there. "Did you see that?" Jake asked Queen Verileth, who had been watching from the doorway. "Yes," she whispered. He remembered something, just for a moment. Jake felt encouraged. Over the next few days, he developed a routine. He would spend mornings playing human music for Prince Kale, afternoons learning about Zephyrian culture from Queen Verileth, and evenings playing recordings of the prince's own harmonic patterns. Slowly, Jake began to see small changes. Prince Kale's skin would flicker with color when he heard familiar harmonic patterns. His breathing would change when Jake played certain human songs. Sometimes Jake thought he saw the prince's eyes focus for just a moment before going blank. Again, Jake also started talking to Prince Kale about his own experiences with loss and trauma. He told him about losing his parents, about the dark months when he didn't want to get out of bed, about the friends who stayed with him even when he pushed them away. "The hardest part wasn't the grief," Jake said one morning. "It was feeling like I was the only person in the universe who understood what I was going through. But that wasn't true. Other people had felt the same pain, even if their experiences were different from mine." Jake noticed that Prince Kale's breathing deepened when he talked about overcoming difficult emotions. The prince seemed to be listening, even if he couldn't respond. Queen Varileth began spending more time in the garden chamber, watching Jake work with her son. She was fascinated by human approaches to healing. "Your species has such different ways of dealing with pain," she said one day. "Zephyrians heal through connection with others. When someone is hurt, the whole community shares their emotions until the pain becomes manageable. But humans seem to heal by finding individual strength first, then reconnecting with others." Jake thought about this. Maybe that's what Prince Kale needs. He was connected to millions of people when they died. Maybe he needs to learn how to be alone with his feelings before he can connect with others again. Jake started a new approach. Instead of trying to get Prince Kale to reconnect with the world, he focused on helping him accept his isolation. He talked about times when being alone wasn't scary, when solitude could be peaceful instead of empty. "Sometimes we need to be alone to understand who we are," Jake said. "It's okay to take time away from everyone else while you figure out how to carry difficult memories." This seemed to have an effect. Prince Kale's posture relaxed slightly, and his gray skin began to show very faint patterns, like shadows of color moving just beneath the surface. Jake felt like he was making progress, but he also knew he was running out of time. Queen Varileth had told him that Prince Kale was getting physically weaker. The lack of emotional connection was slowly killing him. Jake needed to find a way to help Prince Kale take the next step from isolation back toward connection with the world. But first, the prince needed to want to come back. Jake had been working with Prince Kale for 2 weeks when he noticed something important. The prince was getting weaker. His breathing was more shallow, and his already gray skin was becoming paler. Queen Varileth confirmed Jake's fears when she visited that morning. "The healers say he has maybe a week left," she said, her skin showing deep patterns of grief. "His body is shutting down because his mind cannot reconnect with life." Jake felt desperate. He had been making small progress, but not enough. Prince Kale was still trapped in his own mind, unable to break free from the trauma that held him prisoner. That afternoon, Jake tried a different approach. Instead of playing music or talking about healing, he decided to face the trauma directly. "Kale," Jake said, sitting close to the prince, "I want to talk about what happened on the colony world. I want to talk about the people who died." For the first time in weeks, Prince Kale's breathing changed noticeably. His hands tightened slightly on his knees. "I know you think you should have saved them," Jake continued. "I know you feel guilty for surviving when they didn't. But running away from those feelings won't bring them back, and it won't honor their memory." Jake pulled out a small device that Queen Varileth had given him. It could project holographic images. "Your mother showed me pictures of the colony world before the attack. It was beautiful." Jake activated the device, and the garden chamber filled with images of the destroyed planet as it had been. Rolling hills covered with silver grass, cities that looked like giant flowers, children playing in parks that glowed with soft light. Prince Kale's eyes suddenly focused on the images. His skin flickered with color for the first time in days, but it was the red of pain and anger. "They had lives," Jake said quietly. "They had families, dreams, hopes for the future. The Devourers took all of that away. But they didn't take away the fact that those people existed, that they mattered." Prince Kale's breathing became faster. His skin was now showing clear patterns of red and black, the colors of rage and despair. "You were there," Jake said. "You saw them die and you couldn't stop it. That's a terrible burden to carry. But you know what would be worse? If their deaths meant nothing? if no one remembered them or cared that they were gone. Suddenly, Prince Kale made a sound. It was quiet, like a whisper, but it was the first sound he had made in months. Why? Prince Kale asked, his voice barely audible. Why did I survive when they didn't? Jake felt his heart racing. The prince had spoken. This was the breakthrough he had been hoping for. I don't know, Jake said honestly. Sometimes there's no reason why some people survive and others don't. But you did survive, and that means something. Prince Kale's eyes were now fully focused on Jake, filled with pain but also with awareness. I watched children die. I saw families torn apart. I could hear their screams even after the devourers consumed them. Jake nodded, and those memories will always be part of you. But they don't have to control you. How can you say that? Prince Kale asked, his voice getting stronger. How can I ever be happy again when I know what I saw? Jake had been waiting for this question, because being happy doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to live in honor of those who can't. Every day you choose to keep going is a victory against the devourers. Prince Kale's skin was now showing complex patterns of color that Jake had never seen before. Pain and anger mixed with something else, something that might have been hope. I don't know how to live with these memories, Prince Kale said. You don't have to know right now, Jake replied. You just have to be willing to try, and you don't have to do it alone. Jake gestured toward the doorway, where Queen Violet had been standing and listening. She stepped forward, tears streaming down her face, her skin glowing with joy and relief. My son, she said softly, I have been waiting so long to hear your voice. Prince Kale looked at his mother, and for the first time Jake saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Mother, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save them. I'm sorry I left you alone. Queen Violet moved quickly to embrace her son. You have nothing to be sorry for. You are not responsible for what the devourers did. You are only responsible for what you choose to do now. Jake watched as mother and son held each other, both crying. Prince Kale's skin was beginning to show the soft blue patterns that meant love and connection. I'm scared, Prince Kale whispered. I'm scared that if I start to feel happy again, I'll forget about the people who died. You won't forget, Jake sighed. Happiness doesn't erase sadness. It just makes the sadness bearable. And the people who died would want you to find joy again. They would want you to live. Over the next few hours, Prince Kale began to talk more freely. He described the attack in detail, sharing memories he had kept locked away. He cried for the people who had died, and he cried for the innocence he had lost, but he also began to remember good things. He talked about the friends he had made on the colony world, the beautiful art he had seen, the hope he had felt about connecting different species. The devourers destroyed their bodies, Prince Kale said, but they couldn't destroy the connections we made. The friendship, the love, the understanding we shared, that's still real. Jake smiled, and that's what you can carry forward. Not just the trauma, but the good things that came before it. Prince Kale looked at Jake with curiosity. How do you know so much about surviving terrible things? Jake told him about losing his parents, about the years of grief and recovery. He explained how he had learned to carry sadness alongside joy, how he had found meaning in helping others who were going through similar experiences. Pain changes us, Jake said, but it doesn't have to destroy us. Sometimes it can make us stronger, more compassionate, better able to help others. Prince Kale nodded slowly. Maybe that's why I survived? Not because I was special, but because I have work to do. People to help. Maybe, Jake agreed. But first you need to get better. You need to reconnect with life, with your people, with the things that make existence worth living. Prince Kale's skin was now showing steady patterns of blue and gold, the colors of healing and hope. He was still sad, still carrying the weight of what he had witnessed, but he was no longer trapped by it. Thank you, Prince Kale said to Jake. I don't know if I can ever fully repay what you've done for me. Jake shook his head. You don't need to repay anything. You just need to keep living, keep growing, keep becoming the person you're meant to be. As the day ended, Jake realized that Prince Kale was truly healing. The breakthrough had come not from avoiding the trauma, but from facing it directly and finding meaning in survival. 3 weeks had passed since Prince Kale's breakthrough, and Jake watched with amazement as the young alien continued to recover. The prince's skin now showed healthy patterns of color most of the time, and he had begun eating regular meals again. More importantly, he was talking openly about his experiences and his plans for the future. Jake found Prince Kale in the garden chamber one morning, but this time the prince was standing by the fountain instead of sitting motionless. He was creating harmonic patterns with his voice, soft melodies that filled the air with beautiful sound. "That's lovely," Jake said as he approached. "I haven't heard you make music before." Prince Kale smiled, and his skin showed the bright yellow patterns that meant joy. "I'm composing a memorial song for the people who died on the colony world. I want to make sure they're remembered properly." Jake felt proud of how far the prince had come. "That's a wonderful way to honor them." "Jake," Prince Kale said, his expression becoming more serious, "I've been thinking about what you said about finding meaning in survival. I want to dedicate my life to preventing what happened to me from happening to others." "What do you mean?" "I want to study trauma and healing across different species. I want to learn how to help people who have experienced terrible things. Maybe I can become the kind of healer you were for me." Jake nodded enthusiastically. "That's an incredible goal, Kale. You'd be perfect for that kind of work because you understand what it feels like to be lost in trauma." Queen Viroleth entered the garden chamber, her skin glowing with the golden patterns that showed pride and happiness. She had been in meetings with her advisors all morning, discussing the implications of Jake's success. "Jake," she said formally, "we need to talk about the agreement I made." Jake had been thinking about this conversation for days. When Prince Kale had first started recovering, the Queen had mentioned the marriage alliance she had promised. But now that Jake had gotten to know both the Queen and her son, his feelings about the situation had become complicated. "Your Majesty," Jake said carefully, "I've been thinking about that too." Prince Kale looked confused. "What agreement?" Queen Viroleth explained to her son about the marriage promise she had made. Prince Kale's eyes widened with surprise, and his skin flickered through several different color patterns as he processed this information. "Mother, you can't marry someone just because they help me," Prince Kale said. "That's not how marriage should work." Jake felt relieved that the prince agreed with his own thoughts. "Prince Kale is right, Your Majesty. When you made that offer, you were desperate to save your son. But marriage should be based on love and understanding, not on gratitude or political necessity." Queen Viroleth's skin showed complex patterns that Jake had learned meant she was thinking deeply. "But Jake, you have done something that no one in our empire could do. You saved my son's life and possibly prevented a civil war. Our people need strong leadership, and an alliance with humans could benefit both our species." "I agree that our species should work together," Jake said. "But there are better ways to do that than a marriage neither of us really wants," Prince Kale stepped forward. "I have an idea. What if Jake stayed here not as Mother's husband, but as our first human ambassador? He could help establish a real partnership between our peoples, and he could help me learn about cross-species psychology." Jake felt excited by this suggestion. That could work. "I could help set up exchange programs where humans and Zephyrians learn from each other. Your people have amazing technology and wisdom, and humans have different approaches to problem-solving that might be useful." Queen Viroleth considered this proposal. "You would be willing to stay on our world permanently?" Jake thought about his life back on Earth. He had no close family left, and his research work had always been the most important thing to him. Here, he could do research that had never been attempted before, studying how different species could help each other heal and grow. "Yes," Jake said, "I think this is where I'm meant to be." Over the following days, they worked out the details of the new arrangement. Jake would become the first human ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire. With the official title of Cross-Species Cultural Advisor, he would help establish communication protocols between the two civilizations and work with Prince Kale to develop new methods of psychological healing. The Zephyrian Council met to approve this arrangement, and Jake was amazed by the discussion that followed. The aliens debated the proposal with wisdom and care, asking detailed questions about how the partnership would work and what benefits it might bring to both species. The human Jake Martinez has shown us that different approaches to healing can be more effective than our traditional methods. One counselor said, "Perhaps there are other areas where human and Zephyrian knowledge could combine to create something new," another counselor agreed. The prince's recovery proves that working together makes us stronger than working alone. When the council voted, the approval was unanimous. Jake would stay as an ambassador, and formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire would begin immediately. A few weeks later, Jake stood in the garden chamber with Prince Kale, watching as the young alien practiced new healing techniques. Kale was working with other Zephyrians who had experienced trauma, combining traditional harmonic healing with the human approaches Jake had taught him. "You're a natural at this," Jake told him. "You have a gift for understanding pain and helping others move through it." Prince Kale's skin showed patterns of gratitude. "I learned from the best teacher. But Jake, I have to ask you something. Do you ever regret not going back to Earth?" Jake considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss certain things about human culture. But I found something here that I never had on Earth. I found a purpose that feels bigger than myself." "What do you mean?" "On Earth, I studied alien life forms, but it was all theoretical. Here, I'm actually building bridges between species. I'm helping to create understanding that could last for thousands of years. That feels like the most important work I could possibly do." Queen Viroleth joined them in the garden, carrying reports from the latest communications with Earth. "Jake, your government has agreed to send a delegation of diplomats and scientists. They want to learn more about our technology and culture," Jake smiled. "And I'm sure they'll want to learn about the healing techniques we've developed here." "Already." "Other species have heard about Prince Kale's recovery," Queen Viroleth said. "We've received requests from 3 different civilizations asking for help with their own trauma survivors." Prince Kale's skin brightened with excitement. "Really? We could help people across the galaxy?" "That's the plan," Jake said. "We'll start small, with careful research and documentation. But eventually, we might be able to create healing centers on multiple worlds." As the day ended, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed since volunteering to help an alien child. He had expected to either fail quickly or succeed and return home. Instead, he had found a new home and a new purpose that was more fulfilling than anything he had imagined. The marriage alliance that Queen Viroleth had originally proposed had become something much better, a true partnership between species, built on mutual respect and shared goals. Jake had gained not a royal spouse, but a royal friend and a young protege who would carry on the work they had started together. Most importantly, Jake had learned that the greatest victories came not from conquest or dominance, but from compassion and understanding that crossed even the boundaries between species.